European leaders have agreed to relocate some of the record numbers of migrants crossing the Mediterranean in boats. Thousands already in Italy and Greece will be sent to other countries. But a quota system for each EU country is being rejected. All right, let's talk more about that. Michelle Leighton is chief of the Labour Migration Branch of the International Labour Organization and joins us now from Geneva. Good to have you with us. So, Michelle, no quota system, but they do have an agreement to relocate 40,000 migrants who are already in Greece and Italy. Is that enough? What do you make of that?
Well, first, the ILO is very concerned with the tragedies that have happened in the Mediterranean since the beginning of this year. I think we see 2,000 have died trying to cross, and we know that about 150,000 or more have reached the shores of Europe, fleeing not just conflict, but all kinds of crises, from poverty to natural disasters. So clearly, this is a crisis of global proportions, especially when we look at just weeks ago, having seen 25,000 migrants stranded on boats in the Andaman Sea. So I think it can only be positive that the European Council has met to discuss how to ensure better cooperation. But I think it's a first step, as President Tusk has said, and certainly much more needs to be done.
Absolutely. In fact, the Italian Prime Minister Matteo Renzi has accused his EU colleagues, apparently, of just looking after their own interests. What do you make of the fact that countries like, the UK, Ireland and Denmark, they've all opted out of even the voluntary numbers of migrants that the EU are wanting them to take?
Well, in any global crisis, it really calls for cooperation and shared responsibility. So I don't think that the problems will be solved by simply closing doors and making this a problem of the neighbors to deal with. We have to really come together and address these crises because they're not going to go away. As we saw, the 150,000 who've come exceed the rates of last year. So we're likely to see more. And this means we have to get at the broader issues, deeper cooperation within regions and across regions. The ILO is now working with the African Union and with regional economic communities to look at how to create decent work opportunities so that migration can become a choice rather than a necessity. And a deeper investment in these issues is really what's called for.
Well, the problem is, though, Michelle, as obviously you know, a lot of EU countries see asylum seekers and refugees and displaced people as a financial burden. They're a political issue because, people in those countries are worried about this perception of being overrun by migrants. How do you change that perception? How do you make it more about a humanitarian moral obligation than worrying about the economic impact?
Well, I think these issues are very complex, and certainly the public we've seen is influenced by some very extreme views and perhaps not all the facts, maybe misperceptions really instead of real perceptions. And we have to do a better job to change this. I think involving workers and employers, as the European Commission had called for in its platform, along with labor ministries, to look at the evidence base for real labor market shortages, where migrants can bring their talents and skills. Some are entrepreneurs. And there's a lot that migrants bring to the contribution of European societies. And we have to get that information out and have a more balanced, constructive dialogue. That would really help. We also have to look at regular, safe, orderly channels of migration and involve all of the stakeholders in that discussion.
Michelle, good to speak with you. Thank you very much indeed for that. Michelle Leighton from the ILO there.